Welcome back to the Courage Sessions. These are live Q&A sessions that we've set up to help educate the pre-health community about all of the opportunities that there are available out there for you to pursue your pathway towards your own journey towards health professions at our dental, medical, and veterinary schools here in Texas. My name is Enrique Hasso, and I'm the Associate Director of the Texas Health Education Service. I'm the host of this Courage session. I'm so excited to be joined today by Petty Officer Ryan Evans, who is going to share some information about the Armed Forces Health Profession Scholarship Programs. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. So I'm Petty Officer Evans, or NC1 as they call me. I've been in the Navy about 12 years. I joined in 2009 as a hospital corpsman, and I saw the world. And then now I'm in Texas as a medical officer recruiter, giving out scholarships. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You're living the dream, making people's dreams come true, giving out scholarships.
It is true. Trust me. As soon as everything's paid for and they sign and they're like, oh, it's beautiful. So,
yeah. Excellent. Well, would you mind telling us a little bit about your background? I know you kind of gave us a quick overview, but where you've been stationed previously and maybe some of your experiences as well. And this will help some of the folks coming in kind of get to know who you are.
Perfect. So I used to be what's called a hospital corpsman. So hospital corpsman is like a paramedic. My specific training was in combat medicine. So I was a paramedic with an assault rifle, for lack of a better description. I came in 2009 as that. In the Navy, there's enlisted ranks and there's officer ranks. What I work with now with these scholarships are officer programs. What I am is an enlisted. So the biggest difference as you go through all this different medicine that I would do overseas, I went to Afghanistan where we were in, combat zone situations. And then we would package up people and bring them back to a medical provider, which would be an officer. So just like on the freeway, if there's an accident and you see paramedics out there, that's exactly what I used to do. And then we would package them up and bring them to a safe location for a doctor, surgeon, that kind of thing. And then I went from there to Germany. So everywhere, anybody in the world that gets hurt overseas, they get sent to Landstuhl, Germany for the most part. And it's a Roll 4 hospital. It's a wonderful place. And if you make it there, you have a 90% success rate to survive. And so my whole job in Afghanistan was to get them there. And then a year later, I was there receiving people from around the world and then packaging up and getting them back home to the States. And then later on down the line, I had the rare opportunity to work in Guantanamo Bay with the detainees there. So that was a different perspective from that. And then now I'm in Central Texas and I am a medical officer recruiter.
Excellent. Thank you so much. It's funny how you mentioned that how similar it is to, civilian healthcare. And I think that's one of the important takeaways here is that, so many people have so many different conceptions and myths about what this journey is going to look like. And so we're really here to help address those. So just as a reminder, as part of the Courage sessions, we are open to accepting all of your comments and questions. So we are following those on both the TMDSAS page, Facebook page, as well as the Texas Health Education Service, TXHES Facebook page. So if you have any questions today for PO Evans, please share them on there and we'll make sure to get them addressed today. But first off, let's learn more about this scholarship program. So first off, is this program associated with any specific branch of the armed services?
So it's called the Armed Forces Health Professional Scholarship Program. I obviously represent the Navy, but it's available for the Army, the Air Force, and the Navy. The Marine Corps is a subset of the Navy, and then the Air Force, Space Force is a subset of the Air Force, and so on and so forth. So the three primary branches offer the same program. The benefits are, as we'll explore with this, are almost identical. It's just a matter of how you get there and how you apply. There's a little bit of differences in that. And then so it's available no matter what uniform you want to wear.
Excellent. And the experience is exactly the same?
Every branch has their own personality. So you're as we'll explore in the questions that you have for me, we'll talk about what it's like to be trained. But yeah, every branch, the uniform will be different and their structure is different. It's just like working, instead of for Baylor Scott and White, you're working for Sutter Health or something. It's just, it's very similar, but this management's different.
Yeah, different flavors.
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So, do students have to attend a specific undergrad or a specific professional school in order to be eligible?
Well, generally it's your typical pre-health program. So however you get there, I've had traditional students. Obviously, I work with Baylor University quite a bit out here. Or you'll have people that have been out of school for 3 years. So, and they just took undergrad or they took prerequisites. Where it really kick into is once you take the MCAT and apply to med school. That's when we start partying together. So if you're able to get into med school, then we can help you.
Excellent, good to know. So, which health professions programs are eligible for this scholarship?
So this primary one, the Health Professional Scholarship Program, which we all share, is for medical and dental for the most part. Now we do have some subsets like physical therapy, PA, various other programs like that will have that for a few of them and some small numbers, but primarily it's medical and dental. We do not provide veterinary, only the Army does that. So I know that you guys have a lot of veterinarians. I don't believe the Health Professional Scholarship Program connects to veterinarian programs, but an Army recruiter will be able to get better into that for you.
Excellent, thank you. We're just going right through all these questions. So what does the timeline look like for someone who's applying? You mentioned, of course, you have to get into these schools on your own, but what does the timeline look like to apply for the scholarship program?
So for me, typically, say I run into you as a junior or a senior, it works either way. There's a medical screening process. We have to make sure you're medically eligible to join the military. So if I meet you as a junior, I'll go ahead and get that out of the way. Sometimes say you had an ACL repair as a kid, or you had some kind of issue with your elbow or had some surgery done. It lengthens the process for medical screening. So that gives us plenty of workable room. And even if I get you cleared right away as a junior, that screening is good for 2 years. So that carries you past your undergrad and we're good to go. Then I wait for you to get your MCAT done and apply to med school. And I always jokingly call it my 3 M's. So you get through MEPS, which is the medical process, take your MCAT and apply to med school. Once I have those 3 things, we can begin the process. And then we just kind of time it on when you're going to be accepted into med school.
Okay, so that goes pretty much in line with the type of students that we typically work with here with TMDSAS and with Texas Health Education Service. Yeah, excellent.
Perfect.
Yeah, and I love the M's. I'm going to start using that. So, in learning a bit more about the program, I think it's kind of helpful to go over what the different benefits are because, there are just so many here. So what are some of the key benefits for students enrolled in the Hpsp?
Well, the basic piece, of course, is a scholarship. They're going to pay for everything. So the Navy will put you in, they don't care what you get into as long as it's an accredited school in the United States. So if it's a DO school or MD school, they do not care. If it's $12 a year or $500,000 a year, those are dramatic numbers there, but they will pay for it, right? So they're going to pay for a full scholarship, books, fees, tuition. One of the things that comes up quite a bit for like the dental students, for instance, is they'll have like a dental toolkit they have to purchase, $20,000 or something like that. They cover it. If they require you to have a specific laptop, they cover it. Medical insurance is reimbursed, all those pieces. Then if you do the 4-year commitment, they give you $20,000 just for sticking around for 4 years, and they pay you $2,400 a month. That goes up a little bit every year, but yeah, that's about what it is right now. So your primary benefits while you're in school.
Yeah, those dental kits, they can add up.
Yeah.
That's a huge benefit right there alone.
So the Navy gets rid of all your expenses and issues as far as that stuff goes.
Excellent. So what support is provided to students at the undergraduate level?
As far as financial support?
Or any other benefits for students at that level?
Well, typically they're not really in this program until they graduate. In fact, they can't even complete the process until they have their bachelor's degree in their undergrad or whatever they're working on, biology, whatever. So if you were my applicant, and even if I got you selected by our board and you were accepted in med school, I cannot complete the process until you finish that bachelor's degree. So there isn't really a significant amount for them. Now, throughout the process, because they're not actually in the military until they commission after they've graduated. Now, in the process, as we might get into as we go through here, you will have an opportunity if you do one of our residencies to make a lot of money while you're a resident. And I always joke, like if you're smart enough by the time you're done, unless you're buying Porsches and gambling online, you're going to be debt free by the time you're done with us. You'll have paid off your undergrad, you'll have no new debt, you'll have money in the bank.
That's very appealing, especially, we've had several conversations with professionals around the different health professions where, a lot of things that we take for granted is that when you establish your own private practice down the line, your credit's on the line to help buy, that X-ray machine or that, that nice new, surgery equipment or other elements that are part of a private practice. And so if you come into that in debt, it could really offset or really limit a lot of the opportunities that so many health professionals have.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a big problem. And then payroll, everything else, you have to worry about all that stuff.
Right.
Of course, in the military, we don't. For every day you're on active duty, they cover your malpractice insurance. You'll never pay for supplies, equipment, personnel, any of that material.
Awesome. So, what does professional school look like for somebody who's in this program?
Well, it's just exactly the same thing as whatever med school you get into. So if you get into UIW here in Texas, you're just gonna go to school. If you wear flip-flops to school, wear flip-flops to school. I jokingly have my 5 points of success. You see, I have a lot of little catchphrases here, but you keep your GPA up, your waistline down, say no to drugs, no face tattoos, and no felonies. Other than that, we don't care. So you just live your life, keep your grades up, and then everything's good to go. And then there are some breaks between the summers. I can get into that right now if you'd like. So as say you start school in August, you're just going to go to school. And then the scholarship folks will keep in contact with you to make sure your grades don't dip. And then once a year, you'll be activated for 5 weeks. The first time is officer development school, which is your version of boot camp or their version of boot camp. So they'll be activated. They're in full active duty at that time. They're not getting the monthly stipend. They're getting a full paycheck for 5 weeks. Put them on a plane, fly them to Rhode Island where all the officer programs are. They complete that program. They come back to school. They throw their uniforms in the closet and go back to going to class. And then they just roll around. They're not authorized to wear a uniform for the most part for any particular reason. They're not going to be going to school wearing a uniform or any of that kind of stuff. And then every year they're going to activate you for 5 weeks. And the remaining years are going to be for residency shopping. You'll get a chance to try these different residencies.
And residency match process, is that affected by being a part of this program?
Yes, there's a couple different pipelines you can go into here. So primarily you're going to get a chance to meet. So say I've always wanted to be preventive medicine doctor or surgeon, and then you get to go out and they're going to send you on that second year. They're going to send you to Balboa Hospital in San Diego, and you get a chance to try all these different residencies out. And you thought you like working with kids, but now you really don't, or something changes, and you get a chance. And the next year they'll send you out to the East Coast, to Bethesda, Maryland, or such, and you'll get a chance to try these different hospitals. So through that process, you first of all get to identify what you're interested in and actually get a feel for them hands-on. And then secondly, hey, I really like preventative medicine. And you get to meet the people in charge of it, right? So you get to meet all the captains and the big wigs that are in charge of all that business, and you get an early match for that in December. So you should know long before you're graduating med school what's going to happen with that. Where the crossroads comes into is where somebody wants to do a civilian residency, and there's a couple pros and cons with that either direction. If you like, I can go into that for you real quick.
Absolutely.
But, so say you and I are both on the same track, and we both have the same exact amount of time for a residency. You choose a civilian one, and I choose a naval one. Now, the Navy is going to let you choose from their flavors. So obviously, if it's something we don't say, we're not doing pediatrics anymore or something, they're not going to let you go do that. Right? They want their money back, right? Or they want their money's worth for the scholarship. So you're going to do one of the ones we have. Now, we have everything, surgery, everything you can possibly think of, but they're going to want you to do that. Now, if you choose to go in a civilian one and let you go, here's how it's going to be. I'm going to graduate med school and I'll be promoted to lieutenant 03, making $65,000-ish a year, depending on your zip code. I don't pay for my residency. I gain active duty time towards retirement. I'm getting paid on the 1st and the 15th. I get married, have 3 kids. Their medical stuff's covered. No problems. Good to go. 4 years later, I'm whatever doctor now. I'm a general surgeon, and I'm working at the hospital. You will go out to the civilian market, and we'll say, see you later. See you in 4 years. Right. And so we don't pay you anything. And so you go do your thing. Maybe the school charges you or the hospital charges you money. Maybe they pay you. It's different with different programs. But when you come back, you work for me. I have 4 years seniority on you. And I have 4 years towards retirement. So it's pros and cons on what you want. Some people are really set on a particular residency they want. And if you're tip of the spear student, that you'll get what you want. But there's different, like I said, for the undergrad stuff, if you're smart with the residency window and you're just living still like a student kind of, you'll be completely debt free by the time you're done. Unless you're a gambler or bought like $1 million home or something.
Right. Yeah, or those Porsches.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got a follow-up question that just came into the chat about service requirements for military residencies. How does a Hpsp only require service for the years in school, or do you have to add years for the amount of time that you're in residency? It sounds like it's a little bit different depending on which residency you go into.
It gets kind of murky if you're in a lengthy residency. So 4 years is the number I like to throw out because that's the typical cutoff. If you do a 7-year residency, for instance, with us, you'll end up owing the 3 years after 4. So it's math on a paper there, but you'll end up owing a 7 years. So it kind of gets, and they're different in how they calculate that. But if you're in a really long residency with us, they will tack on a couple extra years for that.
Okay, thank you. And then we have another question. Is this something that many medical students do when their significant others already in commissioned military?
Yes, it all depends on what they're doing. That's when I would want you to line up with your own branch or with the same branch as your spouse. You can pull this off without that, but people do this in the military all the time. You're moving around, you meet somebody, especially if you're in the same branch of service. Obviously, there's bases that you can probably work near. Now, an Army base, if your spouse is in the Army and then you commission in the Navy, it's going to be difficult to find bases that are close enough to be able to pull it off consistently. But that's just something to think about. And again, people can, with this program, you owe us 4 years, right? So unless you have that lengthy residency or what have you, but you'll owe us a short amount of time. After that's done, you can stay and finish out a retirement, or you can leave, no questions asked. Or you can say, do your 4, hit the door kind of thing, or you can go in the reserves, which you have a lot of control where you are in the reserves. So in the reserves, you just tell them where you live. And so they just assign you the closest reserve center. So it's just kind of one of those things. So a long answer for this, it's doable. If you're going to do that, I would stick with the same branch, preferably.
Thanks for that advice.
Yeah.
You mentioned some of the years going toward retirement. Would you mind talking about what retirement looks like, first off in general, and then what it looks like for somebody in this program?
So what's awesome about this program, aside from being debt free and all that stuff, right? So say you're 22 and you get into med school or whatever the age, or say 25 for sake of argument. By the time you're done with all this and you have worked for us for 20 years, that's usually the retirement cutoff time. You'll be able to do more depending on your rank and your level at that time if you want us to continue on with medicine. But say you just did 20 years at 45. So I got my last active duty paycheck last month, and the first of this month, I get my retirement paycheck, which is generically 65% or so of what you were making the last 3 years of your career or whatever. So whatever that amount might be, if you're making $200,000 or $100,000, you're gonna get like 65 grand just to be retired. Those numbers change every once in a while in Congress and this and that. And I'm trying to be as generic as possible without being pinned down on a specific retirement plan, but you're going to get a good amount of money and you'll be able to just roll on. And then you have your private practice. So you're a 45-year-old, you have no debt, you've got a retirement paycheck, and you've already built a practice on the side. And now you run your own practice. And so you can go for another 10 years or so and have somebody else take over for you, whatever you want to do. You're living in Tahiti by the time you're 60.
Right. Yeah. Nice. Thank you. So let me make sure that we are caught up with everybody's questions. Again, we are here to answer your questions about the Armed Forces Health Profession Scholarship Program. So if you have any questions, we've got PO Officer, Petty Officer Ryan Evans joining us today, and he knows everything about this program. So let us know your questions. We're following them here in the chat. So let's talk about the actual application process here. What does a strong applicant to this program look like?
Well, the minimum threshold is going to be a 500 MCAT and a 3.2 GPA. Strong applicants, a weird word. So I like to look for people that are really passionate about the process. And I've put people in the Navy both that have just wanted the scholarship and who've also wanted both the scholarship and have a passion for service, which those are a lot more fun to work with because they'll get back to you pretty quick, right? But the process is pretty basic on how you're going to start through it. You're going to get through your medical process first. We're going to clear you on that. And then we're going to wait for you to take these, the MCAT and all that other stuff. And we're going to look to see where you're going to land. Now, if you get a 515 MCAT, It's almost like an auto qual. Don't quote me on that, but that's, whatever. I have pulled off some haymakers. So part of my job as a recruiter is to make your package as strong as possible. I've gotten a 496 in and a 494, and some of those have gotten into medical school. So I've gotten them past our board process. So it really just depends. I look for the quality applicant, someone who's passionate, and then we'll build on those academic pieces. You got a 4.0 and a 515 MCAT, unless you're a felon or you're missing your legs, we're in. So that's an easy day. But I've done a lot with different scores. So does that answer your question?
It does. And just as a point of reference, for our matriculated class for TMDSAS schools last year, the average MCAT score was a 511, and the average GPA was about a 3.73. So this opens up the opportunity for so many more students.
Awesome.
Yeah. So what kind of military training is involved in this journey? You kind of touched on that earlier, in going to do officer training around the country, but what kind of actual military training is involved?
So everybody has these visions of boot camp, right? So you see it on TV, there's running and screaming and weapons and marching and stuff like that. That's usually the enlisted version. It depends on the branch, especially the Marines. I've witnessed many boot camps, and I used to do medical coverage for the Marines. The Marines is intense, but you guys they don't do any of that stuff. The two primary things for the Navy is for officer programs is officer candidate school, which is also what you see a lot of on TV. And then you have officer development school. So officer candidate school, you're not an officer when you go, and that's for pilots and surface warfare officers and the like. And they'll go there and they're an enlisted E5 ranking for pay. And it's intense. It's designed to challenge you to an extreme level, and you have to graduate that to become an officer. So if Tom Cruise wants to join the Navy, he'd go to OCS, right, to be a pilot. Now, for the medical programs, you go to officer development school, and so that one's always a fun one. So that you're already an officer when you go, and it's 5 weeks long. So they don't want to interfere with your schooling. And you're going to be there with a bunch of different people. You could be a 21-year-old in your first year of med school, or you can be a 59-year-old cardiac surgeon that just joined the Navy Reserves. You're going to be there with doctors, dentists, nurses, what we call JAGs, or what we call lawyers or whatever. And you'll have all these different people there at one time. And that training is designed to get you to understand exactly what goes on in the military, how to function. You're going to be a leader. So you're going to be a divisional officer. You're going to learn how to lead people. You're going to learn about naval history, organization, structure. You always see people with all this kind of stuff on them. This all means something. That all this stuff is like a resume. You'll be able to read all that, tell what rank you are, all these different things when you come out of there. So when you walk into your first duty station or hospital, in this case, you're not going to be like, well, what is going on? And how come I'm saluting this guy when, when he should have been saluting you, so it's just one of those kind of things. So that's your primary intro to it. All right. Now, throughout your career, so you're going to go to med school and you're going to become all these things. You'll train in naval environments. It really just depends on what your specialty is. You're going to do constant training, just like in the civilian world. Constant training all the time to train up. Now, you're never going to be shooting weapons or anything like that for the most part, unless that's what you really want to do. You'll have options for that. But that's generally not part of your job description as a doctor. But mostly it's just going to be making you ready to serve as a naval officer and a doctor or nurse or dentist.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, and we have seen at this time of year, particularly as students are graduating from medical school, right now is the time when you're actually getting all of the officer ceremonies at the different schools, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so would you mind talking about that a bit?
Yeah. So we have a commissioning. So usually these, the biology students or the pre-med, when we go to commission them, they'll go through this whole process. And I've done some really, really simple ones, like literally flip-flops at my desk. And I'm an enlisted person, so I can't commission you, but my commissioning officer will be there and they'll be like, good to go. Then I've had some more moderate ones, and I had the most extreme one recently. So he wasn't, I don't know if I told you about this the other day, but down in Victoria, there's a doctor. He's now a commander, Peter Nguyen. He was an amazing story. So he's already an existing doctor, but he was from Vietnam as a baby, rescued as a 9-year-old by the U.S. Navy of all things. And then he became a doctor over here, all this stuff. So we go down there to do his commissioning ceremony a couple of months ago. And we had color guard. We had the whole town was there. There were reporters. There was all these people in these chairs. They had guest speakers, awards, flowers. There's somebody saying the national anthem. They did the Pledge of Allegiance. There was I was like, The bar has been raised, but yeah,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's just a bunch of paperwork and then you make a ceremony of it. I've done some fun stuff at Baylor University. It's a really rewarding experience for them. And then they're an officer right there, and then they outrank me. So I'm like,
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great opportunity there. We've got some new questions that have come into the chat, and I think you've already alluded to this one, but is there an age cutoff to apply for the scholarship?
typically it's 42. Now, I'll backtrack that. You want to be commissioned by 42 is the general rule. Now there's age waivers for different things. If you're already a doctor, it's a lot easier. I am working with an applicant right now who is 41, and she will, if we go through this process, she will be probably 42 or 43 by the time we hit that mark. And so there is an age waiver for it. But typically, yeah, I mean, if I meet you as a 40-year-old, which is unusual for this pipeline, then we can still get you in.
Excellent. We've got some follow-up questions to some of the previous discussions. Do branches still adhere to the automatic acceptance criteria for students that hit the metrics outlined in existing documents?
I'm not sure. That's it. Like, can you read that again?
Sure. Do branches still adhere to the automatic acceptance criteria for students that hit the metrics outlined in existing documents?
Well, I'm not sure which existing document, so I'm not exactly sure how to respond to that question, but
okay.
And let's take a lifeline on that one. If they want to clarify that question and re-ask that, I'd appreciate it. But they're going to go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, this is coming from Zach Mendoza, so he's watching live. If you could give us some more information on that, we'd love to address it. And we've got another question. Would you touch on how match day works for Hpsp? And I think this is referring to the residency match day.
The December match we have. So those always change. I don't have a ton of detail on that. You'll know that in that pipeline when you're going along. So just like when you're trying to get your March match for the regular process for the civilian market, you'll be doing the December match. So you get to know a little bit before, several months before the rest of the country does. So you'll already have that working out. The per program or per specialty, how it's going to play out, it's different. But in December is when they release those results, traditionally.
Excellent. Well, while we get some additional information on that question, I think we can really dig into like some of the big myths that you've heard from a lot of students out there. I can imagine we could probably do like several hour session around that, but really want to hand it over to you to just tackle some of these major myths that you're hearing from folks.
So the biggest one is going to be like that. You're a dentist, you're going to be pulling teeth, not pulling triggers, right? So they often have this envisionment that they're going to be jumping out of helicopters and doing all this crazy stuff and in combat and everything else, mostly because of movies. Now, like I mentioned earlier, I was a corpsman. If you watch a movie with the Marines and they're calling doc, 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 that's not a doctor, that's a hospital corpsman. And even though he's in a Navy or Marine uniform, it says Navy on him. So it's a totally different thing. If you're a doctor shooting at people, it's a bad day. So, but typically people have this mentality that they're in combat zones. Even if you are a skilled professional, you're a 04, 05, it's lieutenant commander, and you volunteer, you go out to say Afghanistan. When I was out there, those doctors are not in the front lines. They're way in the back. So in Texas, for a frame of reference, if the combat zone was in the Waco area, these people would be packaged up and sent to San Antonio area, which would be a giant fortified base, major hospital facility, a runway, and 30,000 Army people. So it's always funny what they think on that stuff. They also think they're going to sea all the time, and they're going to be on a boat, and they're going to be at sea for 9 months and not see their families. And it's just a bunch of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Hollywood tends to mesh all of our minds. And so it's good to hear that it's not what we've been presented, but rather it's a whole different experience. And, from what we're learning today about some of the benefits, this is really a helpful, viable pathway for so many students. I've worked with so many students over the years where, there are issues with trying to figure out where they're going to go financially. And, they're trying to graduate from college and start making money for their family or providing for their family. And it's difficult because at the time that they graduate from college, they're already either going into professional school, and that's 4 years of just this academic abyss where you're really trying to learn everything. And so a program like this really does ease some of those concerns. And you know, financially speaking, that's probably one of the biggest hurdles that some of our health professionals or aspiring physicians and dentists are really facing. So we do have some follow-up information here about that question. Let's see, there is a minimum application criteria and automatic acceptance criteria for medical core health profession scholarship programs. This is for a different area.
It sounds like he's talking about the auto qualification process. So certain branches, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. It essentially states that applicants are automatically accepted pending medical clearance, if not being a felon, if they have a 3.6 and a 507.
That one, that threshold is identified in some branches, not in ours. It's not in black and white on ours. I know that if I send you up with even a 3.2 GPA and a 515 MCAT, you're going to be selected. We're very careful in the Navy on how we say that. Some branches will give you, like the Army will give you like hey, you got a 515, here's an auto qualification letter, which it's still meaningless until you get into med school and all that other stuff, but it just kind of depends. 507 is a great score. Like I said, I've gotten people with lower than 500, but as far as auto qual, we don't have anything in direct black and white print that I have read personally. But if I met you and you even had a 500 and a 3.2 GPA, I'm gonna do everything I can to get you selected for that program. You just got to get into med school.
Right. Yeah, and that's pretty much what we say when we're talking about medical admissions, dental admissions. You know, it's difficult to say this MCAT score is going to get you in or this GPA score is going to get you in. It's really about the applicant at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I say this jokingly. So like if you have a dry piece of cake, right, and you just can't eat it, you got to drink milk. The more frosting you put on it, the better, right? It's going to taste way better going down. If I've run into, not that the applicant's a dry piece of cake, but if I run into someone with a 3.0 GPA and a 499 MCAT, throughout the process of this, we're going to interview with officers, right? So instead of just setting you up with 2 or 3 officers, you're going to interview with 9. That's how I've gotten past it before. You'll interview with 10. And for every point you're below what we want, you're going to interview with 2 more officers. And then I get the board sees a whole picture of who they are. So it's not just their grades anymore. When you look at a couple notes and a couple references and then see grades, they see the person at that point. And that's usually the recipe for success that I have found. So if you invest in them and they work with you, it pays off.
Excellent. It sounds like you're really passionate about getting people in who are really interested in this pathway.
I love it. It's actually super fun. Like as soon as you make an officer, it's ridiculous.
Good. Yeah, it sounds really appealing for so many different reasons here. So obviously you represent the Navy. So could you share with us just how to get in touch with either you or some of the other regional recruiters in Texas?
Yeah. So depending on your area, I'm from the San Antonio market and we run from Waco, and I'm assuming everybody here is familiar with Texas but from Waco down to the Corpus Christi, Victoria Valley area, right? So if you're interested, I would be a point of contact. We have recruiters across the entire region in our command, so we would be able to connect you. If you got a hold of me and you live in San Antonio, for instance, we have some fantastic recruiters down there. We connect you. There's other markets. We have Houston and we also have Dallas, my neighbors to the north up here. So they would be able to help you as well. If you want to contact me, I can redirect you. We work together as a team as far as the different regions, the different commands to make sure that it's balanced across the whole state.
Excellent. And would you happen to have any insights on some of the other branches and their recruitment for this program?
So you can call up any Army recruiting center, for instance, and ask for their officer recruiter. I think they call them an AMED, if I'm not mistaken, Army medical recruiter. And those people have a little bit of a different scenario. They have a wide territory, like they'll cover half of Texas or something, right? And so they're kind of interesting. And the Air Force, the same thing, I believe. But they're all great people. It just depends on what branch you want to serve in. I have had the opportunity in my career to work with all branches except for Space Force. I haven't seen any of those guys yet. But Coast Guard, Marines, all of them. And they're all great. The passion for service, it's great. The program is the same. It just depends on what you want to do. As far as getting a hold of one of them, if you just Google your local Army recruiting station, they'll be able to direct you. They'll be able to connect you with somebody, connect with somebody, and then get you there. Same thing with the Navy. You can easily reach me, or you can call the local center and or recruiting station, and they'll get you connected with an officer recruiter.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So, these are courage sessions. They're meant to kind of empower our students with everything going on with the pandemic and so many changes that have happened in such a short amount of time. We really want to empower our students to be able to make the best decisions for their career. Do you have any words of wisdom for anybody out there listening?
Don't be afraid to try this program. I know it sounds kind of intimidating. Ask your questions, get that fear out. A lot of people just have like, oh, I don't have any questions. And they get into it and they have like 800 questions, right? And they're envisioning in their mind this thing where they've been commissioned into the Navy and they can never leave for 30 years. And they're going to go be flying overseas and jumping out of helicopters. Just talk to one of us. Let us walk you through it. And you'll love it. You'll love it. I don't know if you're wrapping this up, but I actually there's a second program that we do as a backup. And I was going to talk about that real quick, called the Health Services Collegiate Program.
Yes, please.
So it's kind of the opposite of a scholarship. So what that is it took me 9 years to make E6. And if I brought you in as a student, we would instantly pay you as an E6. Right. So the medical corps, dental corps you have both options. In fact, I would send you up for both. I send you up for the Hpsp and the Hscp, and then you hopefully get selected for both. And you have to tell me which one you want. But essentially, you get paid on the 1st and the 15th. You accrue active duty time that whole time. And where this one really works for people is to have families, because you're fully activated or fully active duty, but you don't wear a uniform. You just go to school, but you have all the benefits. Free medical coverage for your family. You could be married and have 6 kids, and that's all covered. And you get extra money for having kids. Like, it's all beautiful. You can even refer one person and get promoted one time to E7. And so you get even more money a month, right? So it's a pretty fun program. And a lot of our subspecialties, like pharmacy and stuff like that, they are only in those veins. So we have all the different flavors, podiatry, optometry, pharmacy, all that. Most of those are in the collegiate program. And then another thing, back on just your naval career as a medical provider, you have an opportunity every 3 years to move, which not everybody is excited about that all the time, but you will be moved and the Navy will cover all your expenses and they'll move you around. But you'll also have an opportunity to change your career paths a little bit. So maybe you want to do some research or some teaching, or you want to work with patients again. You get a chance to switch that around as you go along. You can mold your career as you want to. If you find out that research is more your bag, as they say, or gig, and you want to get into that, you can find opportunities to do that. If you decide that you want to get going overseas, you want to be on a ship, we have the Comfort and the Mercy. I don't know if you're familiar with those guys, but we have hospital ships. So you might have seen recently with the COVID-19 pandemic in New York City, the Comfort went out there to provide support. They brought people off Manhattan onto the ship to do surgical care and all this other business. They'll send these ships all over the place. So generically speaking, like a typhoon will wipe out Tahiti or something, and they'll destroy all this stuff. You get a chance to volunteer to be on that ship as a surgeon, and it's a giant oil tanker, which in comparison to an aircraft carrier, they're about the same size. So it's pretty funny to see that. But they'll roll out there and they'll bring all these people on board. They'll do all these surgeries, and they'll, for free, obviously, and it's humanitarian. So it gives people a chance to give to developing worlds and everything else. So hopefully that's exciting to you.
Yeah, those ships were massive when we saw those pictures against the New York skyline. The huge ships right in the Hudson.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
If you go aboard one of them, it's amazing, like what they can do on one of those ships. It's a floating hospital. Yeah. So
excellent. Well, thank you very much for sharing that. I didn't include it in my notes to talk about that program. So thank you so much for sharing that.
You got it.
Yeah. Any other resources that you'd like to go over?
Well, a lot of people, it depends on how the applicant wants to be. I mean, really just talk to one of us. We'll walk you through it. There are some links I'll send you here that you can put out that'll walk you through. It's a Navy website, so have fun. It's like you're going to the Department of Motor Vehicles looking for information, but it's structured. It's all there. It'll break down all these different things. It's an exciting program. Even if you don't like it, you serve for 4 years, which will go by like that, and then you're still debt free. And then one thing we didn't cover was general medical officer tours. So that's like a fallback to residency. So some branches do it differently. I know, like the Army, for instance, they'll make you, or the part of the requirements is to do a GMO tour first. And what a GMO tour is, a general medical officer tour. That's where you would typically see like a doctor on an aircraft carrier, or someone with the Marines or on a submarine. Those are general medical office. That's a Joe Navy, Joe military kind of experience. Some branches require you to do those first. Those do count towards your payback. The Navy doesn't necessarily require you to. They're going to try to get you in a residency first, but if you don't match for your residencies, you're paid as a doctor. In the civilian world, you're kind of out of luck, right? You have to go and try to become a resident again or whatever. But this one will give you 2 years to get that out of your system. You get all this on the street time, doctor-patient care, and then you get a restrike for your residency 2 years later. And then boom, you're 10 times more likely to be selected for the program.
That's a fantastic opportunity because, the match process is so much more competitive for residency programs than a lot of people anticipate.
Now, we didn't talk about all of these different things. We have 2 more options for you.
Okay.
So say I just met you and you're a 4th year med student, and I don't have a Hpsp program for that. But if you were to go and graduate and get accepted to a residency program, we have something called the FAP program, the Financial Assistance Program. Generically speaking, they're going to pay for any school costs, and they're going to give you $45,000 a year and then a stipend for 3 years. So they'll take you through your, year for year in the residency on that program. So it's kind of like we caught you too late. And then we also have an alternate version for the reserves called Training and Medical Specialty, or TMS. That one's quite complicated. We probably talk about that for 40 minutes, but that's basically a reserve version of the FAP program. So you can be a resident or fellowships, that kind of thing, and they'll take you through that process.
Excellent. So many wonderful opportunities out there. It really is just each opportunity out there can fit anybody's schedule, can fit everybody's needs. You've talked about, for folks that have families, there's a great program that helps support all of them with their medical expenses. There's another program if you want to explore the world, you're able to, get a lot of different experiences. A lot of fail safes within for residency programs, making sure that you're supported. I think the huge takeaway here is that there are so many different pathways here, and they are ready to be customized to your journey. And it's something that you can leverage to help you, achieve so many of your financial goals and achieve your educational goals without the burden of all that debt, which is a huge, huge concern for so many folks. Before I start winding this down, we do have a couple of follow-up questions here in the chat. For this application cycle for May 2021 through March 2022, what is the latest we should reach out to a recruiter, taking into account the 3 M's?
So if they're going to be going to med school this August, is that what you're saying? Or next year?
It appears there's not enough context there. Can we cover both?
Yeah. So say I met you right now and you already accepted a med school in August, right? Or it's going to start in July, which obviously is in a month or whatever. I'd be like, dude, let's go. and we'll push it through. The process for building an application and going to board and getting a result usually takes 3 or 4 months from start to finish. The application itself can take 2 or 3 months depending on you, right? So I've done it in 11 days. So there's a program called the Nurse Candidate Program, and I met an individual last year. She was amazing. 11 days before the cutoff. It isn't all year long like the Hpsp is. It's this window from July 1st to September 1st. And I met her and we did that whole thing in 11 days, medical, the whole bit. It was insane. But the quickest health professionals one I've done is 3 weeks. And so we can do that. So if I met you right now and you're going to go to school, okay, cool. Let's get you through this process to get you medically cleared. We're going to go to town. I need you to do this, and this, and we're going to build this application in rapid time so I can get it to the next board. So say I submit the application the first week of July, it'll go to board theoretically by the end of July, and I'll know by August if you were selected. So obviously you've already started school, you have to get a loan or whatever to start secure your school. But once you process, it takes about a month for the paper to go through. Congress has to approve you to be an officer and all this cool stuff. Then they pay the school and they start paying you. So if you're still in the same billing cycle, this is what's awesome. So say your billing cycle is 6 months, and on at the end of the 5th month, 1 day away from going to the next billing cycle, if you are connected into that, the Navy will pay off that entire time. So if you just had even if it's a year, so they'll pay off that whole thing. They'll still expect their year back from you, but they'll pay that off. So that's pretty amazing. The only thing you lose out on is the monthly stipends. right? So they're not going to retroactively pay you monthly stipends. So that would be if I met you right now. Now, if you're applying right now to med school, you just took your MCAT recently, you're applying to med school, you're doing your thing, we would build for our fiscal year. So our fiscal year, our New Year's is October 1st. So if you're thinking about me then, say Happy New Year on October 1st. That's our New Year's. So everything's built on that calendar, October to September. So if I met you right now, what was your MCAT? Okay, awesome. What's your GPA? Okay, cool. I'll ask you a bunch of medical questions. We'll get you to MEPS. I'll build your application. And I love to slam them through in October. I'm known for just dropping dozens of them in October because they'll go to the first board. We'll know right away. We'll know at worst case scenario, even on slow board process with the holidays, we'll know by December if you're selected. And then we're good to go. All right. So then you might be hearing back at that point about your med school, and we just wait. So say we don't find out till March that you've been accepted in med school, we just wait. I keep in touch with you. We talk, we make sure things are good, your family's good, all that stuff. And then get accepted in med school, we celebrate and we do some more paperwork. and then you commission. So hopefully that answers your question.
I think we got it cleared. I haven't seen a follow-up to that initial question, so I think we're good.
Awesome.
I know we focused a lot on dental and medical, but in a huge nutshell, what do the other health professions that are eligible for this program, what are they, and is the process any different for them?
Well, everyone, so the medical one is wide open all year long. The boards run all year long until you run out of seats, which typically doesn't happen. I've never seen that happen, right? The dental one is a little bit more, I'm going to backtrack on your question there. So the dental one's a little more complicated. It's about timing. So if I met you as a dental student, we definitely want your application ready by October or November at the latest, because there's a series of boards that go on, and they're usually January, February, March. That's it. Typically, they get enough applicants by the February board that they don't even do a March board. You want to be in that first board. You want to be in that first board because they're going to probably find all the people they want in that first board. Doesn't mean you can't get it from the February board, but we're going to work hard. If we miss that window, you miss the window. With the medical one, I can do a 4-year version, a 3-year version, or a 2-year version. So I can meet you as a first-year med student, second-year med student, and we can still get you in. The dental court does not have that. It does have a 3-year version, but it's more of a consolation prize. You weren't selected for the 4-year, but you were close enough to that picking pool and the wait list that we're going to go and give you the 3-year version. So you can't apply for that directly. So that's kind of confusing. The other ones are all based on board cycles, but we have a nurse candidate program. So that one is not as robust as our health professional scholarship program, but that one will pay you a $10,000 signing bonus and then $1,000 a month for every month you're in the program. There's a 1-year and a 2-year version. And depending on how many months you're in there, it can go from $22,000 to $34,000 they'll give you for that program. The 1-year has a 4-year service obligation, and the 2-year has a 5-year service obligation. And then I have them all listed here because I can't remember them all off the top of my head, but we have all of the specialties from healthcare administrator to biochemistry, microbiology, radiation, physiology, aerospace physiology, clin psych. We have intern, doctoral programs, clinical psychology, fully trained, aerospace, environmental health. It goes on and on, audiology, occupational therapy, preventive medicine. So we have all these different things. How you get there, the medical one is the easiest because there's more of a pathway. The other ones are all some minutia of timing, but we've got it all. We've got it all.
Yeah, and I think that's reflective of what the admissions processes look for all the different health professions as well.
Perfect.
Excellent. Well, before we let you go, is there anything else that you wanted to share? Maybe another myth that came up, or just a good final piece of advice out there?
So I joined the Navy when I was 32. So I don't know how I look on your screen, but I'm old. I'm 45, right? So I've been in the Navy for quite some time. During my career prior to that, I worked for large corporations. I've worked for major systems, and just like the hospital systems are now, most of the civilian ones are major corporations. You can give 110% of your effort and get 80% back, right? The Navy, on a bad day, if you give them 110%, will give you 100% back. They will take care of you. They've eliminated all your excuses, and if you work hard, they will repay you hand over fist. So just keep that in mind. It's a great organization. I know sometimes it can seem intimidating to be in the service, but if I brought you in, you'd be my boss, and you can yell at me if you want to, but nobody's going to yell at you. So just 110% effort, 100% on a bad day.
Wonderful. And how can people get a hold of you?
Well, I'm assuming you can share my phone number and my email address, but the easiest way to get a hold of me is by email. or I'm also on Instagram as the Navy Medical Officer Recruiter. But my email is going to be ryan.evans, the number 1, at navy.mil.
I'm sharing that in the chat. For anybody who wants to reach out. And of course, if you're listening to this through our podcast or through one of our recordings, you'll be able to take a look in the description and see the link that was mentioned earlier for everybody that really wants to explore the Navy website and learn more about all of these great opportunities. We'll drop your Instagram handle and your email addresses there in there as well for anybody who wants to get a hold of you.
I appreciate it.
I can't thank you enough for all this great information, for your patience with all my questions.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I gratefully, you brought me here for this. This is an amazing opportunity to reach all these kids and students, get their careers on track. So I really appreciate it. And thanks for asking me all those questions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if anything new comes up, you are very welcome to join us back for another session. And
I appreciate it.
Yeah. And on behalf of everybody here at the Texas Health Education Service and TMDSAS, we'd like to wish everybody all the best of luck on your journey. It's not going to be easy, but it's definitely going to be worth it for you. So we'll catch you at the next Courage session. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.